Ben, I believe we have everybody on that was supposed to be on for our panelists for this discussion.
All right, excellent. I appreciate everyone joining us and trying to have an opportunity to talk about our rezoning application. In this case, these times are difficult, and so being able to do it this way is very, very convenient. I have with us representatives from Hillwood, the developer. They have put together a brief slideshow that will help, I guess, frame some of the issues that we are talking about today, and kind of the concept for what we intend to do with this property. And then we will be able to talk about that in more detail and hopefully answer some questions. So I have Kurt Nelson and Chris Seward here, and also we have Alan Grissom from Cannon & Cannon, who is doing our engineering work and our site work, who may be able to delve into some of the details as well. So Kurt, can you pull up our PowerPoint presentation and take us through that?
So I guess the correct answer is I think so.
Think so?
Let's see. Are y'all seeing anything?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep. Ready to go.
Okay. Perfect. So thanks for the start off there. So my name's Kurt Nelson. I'm with Hillwood. We have an office here in Memphis where Chris and I are both located. And out of that office, we handle things that are going on across the state and some other parts of our region. So we appreciate you guys being on the call today. We just figured we'd start off and explain a little bit about who we are and what we plan to do here. And then just kind of run through that. It shouldn't take long. And then hear from you as far as what your concerns are. We really want this to be a project that benefits the community, and I truly believe that it will. But we want to hear your concerns and see how, if you have concerns, see how we can address them. So that's really the purpose of the meeting here. Let me start off with just kind of telling you a little bit about Hillwood. So Hillwood, I work for Ross Perot Jr., and many of you may remember Ross Perot Sr., who ran for president back in 1992. So his son, who's probably 62 now, you call someone junior and you think younger, but so Ross started this company back in 1988, and Mr. Perot, who we called Ross Sr., as you may recall, ran for president in 92. He passed away, unfortunately, this last year, but was a fantastic man, and a lot of his thumbprint is on what goes on around here. And the reason I bring that up is because if you remember him, you probably remember the campaign, and whether you agreed with his politics or not, you probably saw him as a hardworking, trustworthy kind of guy. I would hope you did. He was incredibly honest and had a high level of integrity, and we really pride ourselves on maintaining that legacy. And so I say that to say we've got a plan for what we want to do here. If we tell you we're going to do something, we will do it. There may be things that you ask us to do that we can't do, and we'll be honest about that. And there may be things that we have to say, let us dig in further. But I just want you to know that it's one of the reasons I like working here, because it's an honest group, and we're not here to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. We're here to do what we tell you we're going to do. So with that said, so we're headquartered in Dallas. We work coast to coast, do work in Europe as well. We develop neighborhoods, we develop office buildings, we develop mixed use projects. But the biggest portion of our work is logistics, distribution, fulfillment, industrial kinds of projects. And obviously that's where this project falls. Now, some of our work is going out and buying a vacant piece of land and building a building on it. And those are great projects. But what is really, I think, fun for me and we love doing is things like this project, which are obviously more complex. It requires a rezoning. We've got to demolish a large structure. We've got to work with the city on stormwater and traffic and all kinds of issues to make sure it's a long-term benefit for the community. And we thrive on those kind of projects. We like to do them, and I really think we have a track record of doing them well. Flipping forward here, this is the current zoning map. You can see the mall outlined there. The mall site is currently zone CR2, which is commercial. I figure I'll tell you, just kind of show you where we are and where we think we're going here. This is an aerial photograph. If you ever look at Google Earth, this is probably not a surprise to you. This is what it looks like today, how the mall's situated there. And then these are some photos of how it looks today. You know, honestly, I think the managers who are taking care of it are doing a pretty good job. It's obviously vacant. It's closed down. I think the managers are taking good care of it, but it needs a little love. And you know, I think it's important for us to look at this and recognize that the longer it's just like this, I think the worse it gets. That's just what happens. Sites like this get overpassed for the longer they sit there, the greater chance there is that it gets passed over for whatever might be coming next for the next type of use. And so I think it's important to get this back into economic vitality, get it back contributing to the city and the community. And so that's what we hope to get done here. So this is the proposed zoning map. We propose to rezone it to industrial, IG specifically, and it would just encompass, you know, basically the same mall parcel as it exists now under the old zoning. This is that same aerial with a site plan overlaid on it. And this is the site plan that we expect to develop on the site. This is, like I said, this is the same view. We've zoomed out. I can zoom in here on the next one and give you a little more detail. Gets a little closer in. So you can see that we've basically left the Knoxville Center Drive outer loop as the main access point. We've got a few different points of ingress and egress on that loop. You can see from this is a general plan, but you can see from this plan that we fully expect it to be well landscaped. We've shown obviously the lawn and trees areas on this plan here. And also you can see that, you know, there aren't 50 access points. We've got a few ingress and egress points around this loop, which I think will help to maintain good traffic flow around there and give people good access in and out. It's also separated away here from the access to the apartments on the west side, which I think will help as well. Next, I thought I'd show you some pictures of what we expect this to look like. So these are just sample photographs from other projects that we've done, but it's very similar. So this is a project we did just outside of Nashville and Smyrna. You can see the construction is tilt-up concrete. We don't do metal buildings. We don't plan to do any metal buildings. Haven't done a metal building since I've been here. It's fully painted. We use some architectural features or architectural design features that add interest to it. And I think it's a really good looking building. We will use a good amount of landscaping. It'll be professionally installed, irrigated, maintained. So it'll look good long term, and I think that's important. Here's another picture. This is just another project that's outside of Memphis, one that we recently completed. Same kind of thing, painted concrete, tilt wall construction. You can see the landscaping. This is a brand new building. Landscaping is it's a very manicured look, which I think is always good. And then here's another one we built for Wayfair down in Jacksonville, Florida. Similar to the others, although we use some palm trees down there based on the neighborhood. So that's roughly what we think it'll look like. Let's talk a little bit about schedule. You probably are aware that we filed for rezoning back in August. The final zoning approval, if we get stay on the schedule that we hope to, will be in December. And then we would start filing permits, be ready for to start demolition here in February of next year. From there, it'll take about 13 months to build the buildings, and thus they'd be up and running about around March of 2022. As I said before, we want to hear some of your concerns. We've already heard from a few people, and I know these three are on the list, so I wanted to go ahead and address them. First, noise. You may already be aware, but Knoxville actually has a noise ordinance that limits the amount of noise at our property line. So as part of our development, we will hire an engineer to study the site and our impact. And whatever they say we need to do to meet those limits and to stay under those limits, we will do. So that could include sound walls. It could include, thick landscaping in some areas. It could include some minor site plan adjustments. But whatever it says we have to do to maintain those noise levels at the edge of our property, we're committed to do. Another question has been lighting, as in, will lights from the project be shining on adjacent properties? It's a good question, and I understand the concern. Fortunately, the technology for this lighting has really advanced over the last several years. So we will use LED fixtures where we can control the direction of the light. We control it with the fixture type. We control it with shielding is how you might think of it on the light fixtures. And so it's pretty easy to control. We'll get very technical in this. We will have a photometric study that shows what the light levels will be at different spots. And at the edge of our property, we can, just on the other side of the property line, we can make sure it's less than 0.1 foot candles. Foot candles is kind of the scientific measure of that. And 0.1 foot candles is the same as moonlight on a clear night. So it really, I don't think it should be a concern. Like I said, I think it's a very reasonable question, but I don't think it's something anyone should be worried about. And then finally, the third thing is traffic. We know this is a concern in this area, and we want to make sure we address it. We already have a traffic engineer on board working with this. So far, the traffic engineer we've met with TDOT, and the first step in doing our traffic impact analysis is to identify what areas we need to study. And so the map you're looking at there on the screen is 14 intersections. And those 14 intersections are the ones that we've agreed with TDOT that we will study. And what that means is that engineer will basically look at the traffic counts that are existing before our development and how those intersections all function. And then they will add in whatever traffic is going to come from our development and reanalyze how they function post-development. And at that point, they come up with recommendations. We work with the city to understand what improvements need to be made to make the intersections function. And what I can tell you at this point is that we recognize this is probably the biggest concern. We recognize that improvements are going to be required. These things they're not going to stay exactly as they are now. And probably most important, we recognize that we as the owner and our customer as the operator of these buildings, they need the traffic flow to work. So none of us are interested in investing this amount of capital into a project if the traffic flows don't work. So we're similarly motivated to those in the community to make sure that it functions. So with that, that's my little slide deck. And I guess I don't know if I'm passing it back to Ben or Kevin, but we're happy to take questions and talk about whatever's on your mind.
Ben, would you like anything else you'd like to say?
I don't need to add anything. I think that is kind of a nice overview of what we're talking about. I do expect there to be more specific questions, and we'd be glad to delve into those as we can.
Can we go back to the picture where you kind of zoomed in on with the new buildings?
That one?
Yeah. So I'm seeing the apartments on the back, kind of upper left corner, right?
Correct.
And all those striped lines, parking and everything, all that is automobile parking?
So can you see my cursor when I move it on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're looking at, the smaller lines are the car spaces, parking spaces, and then these are truck spaces. So similarly on this building, these are truck spaces.
So the ones surrounding the building is that actual docks for that building?
they're docks.
Three-sided there?
Right. That's docks against the building, and then trailer parking, for instance, right here.
So this is a 24-hour operation?
We need to be able to be a 24 operation. I don't actually have an answer on whether it would be day one.
Okay, because I'm looking at this and it's looking to me like most of from these pictures, what I'm seeing here, most of the truck traffic's going to be on the side where the apartments are. So that's where noise level is going to come in.
And Mr. Collins, you're correct. And we are looking at, with the noise and with the truck traffic, if we need to adjust this one way or another. But, that's also why we have, most of the vegetation here. And of course, then we have the existing vegetation in this through here as well. On the north side, I just realized y'all can't see my cursor like you can Kurt's.
You're talking right there.
And that's where we have an engineer look at the sound. We're going to be focusing on how to prevent that sound from exceeding the allowed limits at the property line in that area, because that's where it's most where the most concern is. I think in the evening hours, the decibel level at the property line is allowed to be 60 decibels. Under the noise ordinance, and so that's the standard we'll have to meet. I understand that to be, the sound of a normal conversation like we're having right now, to be around those levels as well. So, if we need to do sound walls, we need to increase the vegetation. If we need to look at, exactly, the site plan itself and the docks in that area, and if there's a way to mitigate that. That's all things that we're going to have to do. So yeah, you're correct that the apartments there with the truck traffic is an issue that we're committed to address.
I'm gonna guess you've got a gated entrance coming in off Millertown.
Yes, it'll be gated.
I mean, I know they'll have to check in. Is it? I'm gonna guess that probably 75% or more of the trucks come in or drop a load, hook to an empty and leave. They don't back in and unload themselves.
I don't. The operator of the building would know, but I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. I drove a truck locally for 45 years. And I know Walmart's got a large warehouse up in Greenville, Tennessee. And the way theirs works is most of the time when I went in there, we just took a load in, dropped it on the yard. Then we went and found an empty and left. Now there were a few people that came in that would have a load that, independent drivers, stuff like that didn't have the luxury of dropping and hooking. They would have to back in and unload. But most of the trucks that came in, including the Walmart trucks that distributed out and stuff, would bring a truck in, a trailer in, drop it, and hook another one and leave and stuff. So that's That's just a little added noise is what I'm saying. It's not the, I was just wondering about that. The other thing is, and I'm going to guess same with them, the drivers will have appointment times. So if he say he got a window time of 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or some day, or if he's got an appointment at say 8 o'clock in the morning, he shows up in Knoxville the night before, hopefully he'll stay in a truck stop somewhere till it's time to come over. But I do know even at their warehouse up there, they have a problem with drivers pulling over on the edge of the driveway coming in and just parking there, or parking out on the main road coming in and stuff to wait their time for their windows and stuff. Of course, there is a Walmart across the street and stuff that truckers use during the night sometimes now. Target shopping center up the street, places like that, they already do that just driving through. But I just, I'm just asking questions if it's similar to that, the way this one will be done.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know at this point, but I can follow up and see what I can figure out.
Hi, this is Kevin. So I'm monitoring that there's a Facebook event, and there's some comments on YouTube and a couple through Zoom. And also I see Councilwoman Ryder, you've got your hand up. Is there a question you want? And you're on.
Yeah, I'll try and be quick because I'll have other opportunities to ask questions, but and Mr. Collins got to some of them. How set in stone is this layout? Because I see there's questions in the chat about access from Millertown. I have some serious concerns about the layout. It's not just the apartments there at the back. There's also the neighborhood there to the left behind EBCO that's next to the apartments. So there are residential areas here, and it seems some of the loudest, the way it's arranged, it puts the loudest components next to the residential areas.
So we can work on the plan. We can look at the plan. I don't know how much flexibility there is. I mean, if it was a perfect square and it was just about rotating it, then that would be fine. And I'm not saying we can't. I just want to be honest with you that I don't know if we can or not. But we can have our civil engineer work on the layout and see what we can do to move some things around.
So, and I guess what you're purchasing is within the circle. Is that correct? So your perimeters of your purchase are circular? Because at one point with the previous owner, there was also a conversation about, I mean, it might have been pie in the sky, but there were actually drawings from an engineering firm about a road, Knoxville Center Drive, becoming connected to Millertown for another access point for traffic from Millertown. Because if you've been there 4 o'clock on in the afternoon, it is horrible backlog of traffic. So that conversation has happened in the past. I'll let other people have their questions because I will have plenty of chances.
Yep. Yeah, that's a major concern that I see is when you exit on Interstate 640 west onto Millertown Pike, you come up that exit ramp. And right now, it looks like a lot of the traffic for the larger building comes off of Knoxville Center Drive. Delivery trucks, their GPS will probably route them, take a right on Millertown Pike, and then take a left on what's currently Mall Road. That's a short distance. It's several lanes to get across. I mean, that's the one thing that will definitely raise the hackles of all the local residents here. Is that's already it's a really tough problem for the traffic engineers to solve. Right now, if they're looking to do anything, there's just not much space there for the amount of traffic and different movement patterns that are occurring there. And so that's been brought up in chat, and that's the one thing that I've universally heard from anybody that I've talked to about this. They've said, well, geez, the traffic on Millertown Pike is so bad right there. So anything, trying to get the trucks, the truck traffic onto Mall Road and to use, those access points. That's absolutely a critical must-have. And I want the city staff and planning and the developers to all hear that. If there's, that is the one universal thing that I've heard every single person I've ever talked to ask about this. I'm going to ask a couple of the questions that are in chat. And actually, is that something that you can address, or is that, what do you have about, that traffic on Millertown Pike that you know right now?
Well, so I am aware that there are traffic problems there. I mean, I can't tell you what we can do about it at this point. Like I said, we've got a consultant that's been engaged that we're just starting those studies, and they will come back with recommendations on how to improve things at across the board. But what you're saying is that, like, if someone came off 640 to just, instead of turning right on Millertown, keep going west or northwest on Mall Road, that's your preference. I just want to make sure I understand.
Probably, let the traffic engineers get on
right.
that. But yeah, and I just want to make sure I want to point out that is absolutely that's the bottleneck when anybody thinks of any development in this area. That's the one where everybody gets really nervous, because it's already really tough for anybody that's commuting and trying to get out to anywhere in the community.
Gotcha.
So yeah. So addressing that is something I think that Councilwoman Ryder, Ronnie Collins, myself, and anybody else that's looking at this, that's something that's kind of like on the must address list for us, I think.
Okay.
Yep. Let's see. Got a couple of questions on the chat. This is on the YouTube chat. So I guess one person asking, is this mean demolition of most or all of the existing building?
It does. Yes. I mean, everything inside the ring road.
Yeah.
Correct.
And what's how do is there a way to reuse any of that material, or how does that what happens to all that that debris?
We got to dig into that. We're actually not that far along. There are ways to do that. There are ways to recycle concrete, steel. It doesn't mean that it necessarily comes back and gets used right here.
Right.
But yes, there are ways to do that. We're not that far along that we've even come up with that kind of a plan yet, but it's certainly something we can make sure we pay attention to and address.
Another question, somebody was asking what the square footages of each of those two proposed buildings are.
So roughly, let me think, 200, the one that's kind of further north is about 280,000 square feet, and the one that is further south is about 110,000 square feet.
And is this is it two different tenants, or is it the same tenant that's trying to use both buildings?
It's the same customer.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's see, other questions. Let's see, traffic is an issue. Let's see. I also had a question about the tractor trailer traffic, and so is it what kind of traffic levels, what kind of traffic does get generated? Is this where you have like 100 trucks a day or 500 tractor trailer trucks a day, and then also are there also local delivery trucks that come out from this distribution center? So what does the traffic impact of one of these look like?
Those are really good questions, and I don't know the answers off the top of my head, but I can talk to the customer and get them for you.
Okay, yeah, I know that's something that kind of helps people understand. Are we talking about a few trucks
right.
a day, a lot of trucks? Are we also adding in local delivery trucks, smaller vans, trucks, whatever from that as well? Okay.
Right. Good question.
Yeah. Yep. I'll ask, are there other questions? I've got, I'm flipping back, just checking some of the online stuff right now.
I've got some questions on the Q&A here on Zoom if you'd like.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, from S. Gray, flooding is also a long-term problem in this area to point that roads are sometimes closed in heavy rains. So are you, do you have someone working with you on that as well? There were a couple other questions here about, about traffic, and looks like somebody's helping to answer that.
Oh. Yeah. So yeah, then there's some questions about like some of what if there are some other sites in town that were considered, like I guess there's one on Cherry Street where the Mullins warehouses were. And I think somebody had asked me about like some of the county industrial parks. So I guess we're kind of wondering what makes this site attractive versus some of the other pre-existing industrial site in the area.
Okay, so on that question, I would say we did a pretty exhaustive search, and it could have been all kinds of things on different sites. We certainly talked to the county, talked about the sites, the chamber markets, and city county sites, and there were some that were good for some reasons and didn't work for others. I mean, it's across the board, but this one just made the most sense from everything from a labor to transportation to, those are probably the two biggest, frankly, but those were the biggest contributors to that.
Yeah, I guess I guess you do have a potentially good sized labor market, locally, right close to it. It's not like, in the city, it's not a very far drive to get out to the mall area for folks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm still looking at this map, and I'm guessing the current entrance that comes in off Millertown, I guess would still stay there, and access to the complete circle would still be accessible to everybody because of the outlying businesses around it and the apartments back there, that your gate and everything closed in would be inside the circle area, I'll say, basically. Right.
Yeah, you're correct. All the access points that are there now will stay there from outside Knoxville Center Drive, outside the loop, and then that loop road will stay open, everywhere where it's shown there. So any fencing or gates will be off that inside of that loop.
We have a question from an attendee. If you would like for me to allow him to speak.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Go ahead, Gray. You can unmute yourself.
You may have to promote them. Oh, no, yeah. I think they can ask on audio here.
It looks like they're unmuted. If they, I'll promote them. Maybe that'll be easy.
Yep. Also had a question from Daniel and one on YouTube as well that we're asking about how many proposed jobs would this create?
So I don't have the exact number at this point, but what I've been told is it's definitely in the hundreds. I don't think it's in the thousands, but I would guess it's in the mid to upper hundreds of jobs.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Other questions? Is there somebody asked if what the estimated investment for the development would be?
Should be about probably about 70 million, 80 million, maybe something like that.
Okay. I had go ahead.
That's great. Did you still have a question? I promoted you to panelist, hoping that would help.
Yeah, they're currently muted right now. So, I know I had a question. This is something a few people have asked too, and this is more directly. I know we have a couple of folks from the planning staff on that probably are experts, but it's for planning and probably also for Ben, who knows the zoning stuff really well. The requested zoning for this is I-G. That's the general industrial zone for to allow a warehouse. Are there maybe this is more for planning, but are there other zones where this could fit, or because that's another general concern is this is a pretty intensive industrial zone, and with Knoxville's zoning laws now, if this rezoning is granted, we've granted general industrial right next to some residential, and what's being talked about looks pretty good, but that doesn't preclude if something fell through or down the road 10 years whatever, but there's a lot of more intense uses that could be that are allowed by right on this property that will never get that aren't precluded. So maybe Ben, if you could answer that, and then I don't know if either Michelle or Amy from planning have could chime in.
I'll start off, and they can of course tell me if I've said something wrong. I mean, there are 3 different industrial zones in the city that would allow this, and there's some differences in the use, and the uses that are allowed in those 3 zones, but there's really not a great deal of difference. The biggest difference is, the design flexibility, and specifically with regard to the height of the buildings. And the IG zone allows there to be a greater height associated with it, and that's I think the reason we wanted to go with the IG zone. We can go through the use matrix and compare and contrast different uses that would be allowed in this zone that are not already allowed in the CR2 zone, but there's a lot of overlap in those uses. And the difference between the IMU zone, which is the lowest level of the industrial, and the current zone. There's very few differences in the uses there, just with regard to building height and setbacks and things of that nature. And we are open. We understand that once you rezone a piece of property, there are all the potential uses on that zone that you have to consider, and that the city's zoning ordinance does not allow there to be conditional zoning. We're open to different ideas about how we can help alleviate some of those concerns or mitigate some of those concerns. We are open to the concept that if we do not go forward with this plan under a certain period of time, the city could on its own initiate a rezoning of the property back, and that we wouldn't object to that under those circumstances. I mean, this is not a speculative build. We have a specific tenant in mind that, they're going to come in and do this. We just have to get the zoning as a condition on closing on the property. So, regardless, of the, the concerns with the zoning, I think with the updated zoning ordinance that takes into account more robust stormwater issues. I know there was a question about flooding. The mall was developed in the 1980s, and the stormwater ordinance at that time isn't nearly as robust as it is now. The light issues and the noise issues, those are things that baked into the current zoning will be addressed in a way to mitigate a lot of the impacts that are associated as well with our use. So we hope, by reducing some of the impervious areas, by increasing the landscaping, by improving on the existing stormwater on site, that will leave the community better with regard to traffic, sound, light, and stormwater than it is currently.
Yeah. Ms. Brooks or Ms. Poitier, do you anything from the planning side, from Knox County Planning, on how zoning works?
Well, this is a new application for us. So, as I mentioned to Kevin earlier, we've just begun reviewing it. So in terms of, thinking about other zones, I don't want to reiterate what Ben has already articulated, I think he knows the code very well. And there's a limited amount of zones that will allow this type of use. And although, you know, the IMU is industrial mixed use, there are, as Ben noted, design standards associated with that, which may or may not work for this particular property owner and what they want to do. And so those are things that, you know, I'm sure they took that into consideration when they applied for the IG. So I don't really have anything else to add right now, but obviously we're looking at other zones as well to see if there's something else that it might fit into.
Cool, thank you. There's another question I see on chat. Somebody was asking if local developers, and I assume that means contractors, construction firms would be used. What kind of construction employment numbers are, kind of like how does this project involve the local community, and local businesses in terms of getting it built and stuff.
Right. Well, kind of like you were talking about with the recycling, we're not that far along that we've started thinking about contractors yet, but we certainly want to be a part of the community, and to the extent we can use local subs, contractors, and vendors on this, we will. I think it's a good idea to do that. So I'll definitely put that on our list to make sure that it's something we try to do. We've got to get people who are qualified to do this kind of project, obviously. But if we can find local folks that can do it, we're happy to do it.
Okay, great. Let's see. I see, Councilwoman Ryder, you had your hand up. Oh, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Yes,
more.
no,
There you go.
I couldn't get my button. I actually have a question from the apartment owner, Mr. Brown. He is watching, but not on the call. Specifically, he wanted to know if there would be security on site. And I think Ronnie had asked about a gated entrance, so maybe that includes some of that answer.
Right. I would expect that that most of these facilities will be fenced and have gates for entry with some kind of security there. I don't expect any like roving security that's driving around the loop, but there will be security at them.
Okay. The drive is included in your purchase as well, right? Or is that some shared right away with like Wendy's? So yes, we will control it, but it has all kinds of easements existing that allow people on the outside access. So it's going to stay open. Okay.
Oh, security wise, I'm going to guess like one I talked about for Walmart, there won't be necessarily security guys out in the yard. There'll probably be, I'm going to guess they probably have yard shuffler guys that do a lot of shifting the trailers around and things like that. So they're usually out there, but security cameras are everywhere in the parking lots. And I'm sure there's in the gate, there's cameras that where the guards are and stuff that can sit and watch everything into place all the time. So.
Right. Yeah, you are correct.
It's a distribution facility. I mean, it's got a lot of merchandise. It's not a very good business model if we're not trying to protect our merchandise there, and that of course will add to the security of the that the neighborhood and the apartments are concerned about. I mean, it'll have to be secured, or we're not going to do a very good job in our business.
I'm gonna guess it'll have a fence or something all the way around it so people just couldn't walk in from anywhere to it too.
Right. It will be fenced, and like you said, there'll also be some gates with guardhouses where people are let in.
I was looking at your entry and going to parking lots and stuff like that. Looks like almost everybody that'll access the property itself be coming in on Milltown Road through that area there. They'll have to come in, even employees working inside and so forth. They all have to come in. Looks like to me, from what I can make from this picture from Millertown Pike itself.
Right, and I see what you're looking at. Like I said before, we'll look at the site plan deeper. I don't think that was. I think we did the site plan so that it could fit. It wasn't intentional to say, hey, let's make sure all the traffic comes through Millertown. So if we can shift some things around to not have that happen, we're happy to do it. We just got to look at the geometry of the site and see what we can do.
This Kevin, I have a question for W. Mayor Welch. There's something like this makes potentially a lot of changes in the area. There's obviously, and I think we've heard the traffic. That there's coordination, with the developer, the city engineering, TDOT, and all that. How does the city help work to make this a success? Because we've got, I know TDOT has a current exit ramp project, which now this would potentially impact, and some things. So yeah, how does the city kind of work to help help smooth what it could be really bumpy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think that's a great question. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I always like those head nods. It's always hard to tell when everybody's on a little tiny screen. So I think that's a really great question, and I think the city is very interested, first of all, in the success of this site. This is a really key site for the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood. It's also a really key site for our region. So our engineering department would be very involved and has those relationships between TDOT. We work with TDOT on a regular basis, are already in conversations with TDOT about traffic, and have been for some time about traffic issues in this area. And so would continue to work with the development team on that. That's something we do on a regular basis. So that's not foreign to us. Great question, and a really important factor for the city, for the city's involvement.
Let's see. There's a question that is on the chat, just asking, if it's approved by Knoxville, Knox County Planning, what happens next in the approval process? Let Amy or Michelle take that. Oh, you're muted, Amy.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, good. So once it's approved by the Planning Commission, or if it is approved by the Planning Commission, actually regardless of the decision, it goes on to City Council for final approval. And then if Council approves it, then they just move to working strictly with the city and their Development Services Department.
Is it 2 readings at City Council?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's see. There's several comments in the YouTube chat, just kind of relaying it back. There again, lots and lots of comments about the traffic into the distribution center being off of Mall Road instead of Millertown Pike. So yeah, that seems to be a real universal concern. So I know y'all have definitely heard that one. Let's see, there's looks like we've also got some folks that have their hands raised. Let's see, Councilman Ryder, let's see, Councilman Parker, Councilman Smith. Are any if any of the council members have some questions would like to raise their hands, please, or unmute yourself, please do.
This is Councilwoman Parker. I had a quick question just about the merchandise. What type of merchandise is going to be processed, distributed through this center?
It's just consumer products. I mean, it's nothing crazy. It's just typical. You know what we've said before is that it's distribution and fulfillment, and it's going to be consumer products. Basically, can't talk about more information than that at this point. But it's not, we're not storing vats of hydrochloric acid or anything like that. There's nothing hazardous or anything like that.
I would guess anything that was would be more limited quantity, just small amount that's not really regulated much anyway.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Smith?
Yes, thank you. Can you describe the hundreds of jobs? That's a really big number. Can you talk about the types of jobs without divulging too much about the client or the wages of the jobs?
I can't yet. I'm sure at some point the customer will be ready to talk about that, but it's a logistics and fulfillment center. So there will be people who are driving forklifts and picking product and get paid like similar market wages for that. And then there will be general managers and people who oversee material handling equipment engineers. And I'm sorry I don't have better info for you at this point, but it's not something I have access to. I think you just got to assume it's a company that is well respected. It's not a fly by night operation, and they're gonna pay market wages for this type of operation.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll jump in, Kevin. I'll be the next council person. A couple of questions that have come to me from community members. Amy, can you speak to the buffering with industrial general to the neighboring residential zoning? I'm assuming, without looking at a map, that the apartments are zoned residential of some sort. That's question number one. Question number two, does this also require a one-year plan change and a sector plan? Because I cannot remember that from a previous meeting. And then question number three, which would be for Mr. Nelson, I believe, is why this site? Did you look at other places that might have already been zoned industrial, like Midway? Why this site? And I will characterize my question. It came from somebody else, but I will also say, and I will echo Ms. Welch's comment, this is a really important site to the city. It's critically important to the east side of town. It's something that we've talked about at length, standing room only meetings for over the years. People really want to see something redeveloped here, but of course their concerns brought to the table. So buffering, one-year plan, sector plan, why this site?
Okay, do you want me to go first? Okay, and then I might call on Michelle as well, because she's the staff person who's going to be reviewing it. Yes, it's going to require one-year plan and a sector plan amendment. So that's the first answer. And there are some buffering requirements. And there's also, with industrial general, there's buffering requirements if it's abutting a residential district in terms of for the setbacks. So there's and I think based on their current configuration of their site plan, they would meet that. So it's 50 feet for depending on if you're on the rear setback is 50 feet. Interior side setbacks. And then I don't know, let me look up the buffering for vegetation, unless Michelle has it readily accessible.
I'm looking at it right now, and talks about parking lot square footage. Obviously, this was going to be bigger than, larger than 10,000 square feet. So a perimeter yard must be 10 feet wide as measured from the edge of the parking lot to the right of way or to the utility maintenance zone. The perimeter landscape yard is established between that parking area and the right of way. Got to be planted with a minimum of 3 shade and or evergreen trees and 10 shrubs for every 100 linear feet. A minimum of 50% of the shrubs must be evergreen. For parking lots, including vehicular use areas, that's less than 20,000 square feet. I'm not sure what this will be, but in that case, the perimeter screening could be reduced to 6 feet. And this is kind of getting into the weeds, but 60% of the landscaping area outside of the shrub and tree masses must be planted in live ground cover, perennials, or ornamental grasses. I can't talk today for some reason. But that's kind of getting into the parking. There's also interior parking lot landscaping requirements. And then there's also buffer zones as well. So Class A and Class B buffer zones. If you've got a non-residential use that abuts the residential district, you would need a Class A buffer, or sorry, Class B buffer. But abuts a residential district. And so that, on top of the perimeter landscaping, would be a minimum of 20-foot depth. You've got a shrub for every 3 linear feet, minimum, again, 50% evergreens. And then you've got 1 evergreen tree for every 20 feet, 1 shade tree for every 30. So basically you're going to have kind of a row of trees, but they're going to alternate between a shade tree and an evergreen tree with some shrubbery between. And then the depths would vary from 20 feet to 10 feet, depending on if it was a perimeter or adjacent to residential.
Thanks.
Yeah. Can I insert one question while we're on shrubbery and trees? Just to add on to Councilwoman Ryder's question, is this more or less tree canopy than is there now?
I haven't been up to that site in quite some time. I would imagine it's more than what's there now. Let me see if I can get on an aerial view and take a look at what's there.
Maybe that's better for Mr. Collins. You're probably more
Yeah.
familiar than anybody, but I haven't been out there in a while to see, but I know there's not a lot of trees in the parking.
Right. Also,
no,
too, if they need to buffer the sounds, that would create some trees along the residential area as well, as what they were saying earlier.
but to stay inside the perimeter, I'll say where they'll have to do this, because not the outside the perimeter area. There's basically really no trees. There's some islands spaced in different areas in the parking lot that have some trees in them, but none that big an area of trees. So just kind of scattered throughout the whole thing. Nothing.
All right. Thank you.
And then the last question I asked was about why this site.
Right. And Kurt's here. I don't know. I'm on my phone. My Zoom app shows me as not being connected. So, but I'm still here. So as long as y'all can hear me.
Yep. We can hear you.
Great. So why this site? It's a combination of really 2 things. One is that it's got very good access to the interstate. I mean, you can get back on the interstate pretty quickly. So the transportation side of it is good. And the second is labor. The idea of being close to the quality labor that's in this area was a big draw. And we did look at other sites. We looked at other sites that were further out, but that was just a big draw for us. And the customer was to be in this area because they felt like it was a higher quality of labor. So, we really thought this was a great reuse for this site. Given that it's a closed down mall, we thought it was just a good opportunity to redevelop and put this thing back on the tax rolls and back to being an economic generator instead of, a draw on the rest of the city and county.
And Councilwoman Ryder, if I could add to that, I know, there was an article in the newspaper today that noted that, companies that do this type of work, this is a trend for them is to find, old mall sites that, have not been repurposed and then developing them for the reason, because they tend to be close to, the infrastructure. They tend to be close to the job centers or the people, and they make it very attractive for this type of use for them to bring their product out. So I thought that was just an interesting observation in the News Sentinel from, that there is a trend for this type of repurposing of this type of property across the country. So.
Let's see. There's one question in our Q&A asking if there's any like plan, if there's if the facility has a showroom, if there's like public commerce associated with this.
No, we don't expect any kind of customer drive up, to come get things.
Yeah.
If that's what you're asking, Kevin.
I think that's what the question was asking. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I had one other question. So, and this kind of deals to, the mall, and we've had, decline in the area and all this, and this might be, I know this is something that Councilman Ryder and Ronnie Collins and, I share is, so there's also, it's not, the mall is not just the core property that's being proposed for redevelopment here. We've got some surrounding businesses as well. We're trying to, one thing we haven't been able to kind of wrap our heads around is, how does this impact those other businesses? Is it something that will help them? Is it something that's kind of neutral? Is it something that takes away, the consumer traffic that, it's not going to add any more consumer traffic, and maybe, they're hoping redevelopment happens. So like, how's that, just even that micro area, just the, perimeter businesses around the Knoxville Center Mall?
We should probably get an economist to help us, but I would think it would be a positive because there's nothing happening at that mall right now. So I think it would add activity for the other businesses around that area, because I don't know if it's 500 jobs or 800 jobs or 900 jobs, but that's a lot of people that are going to be coming in and out of that area that need services and need to shop and need to go to the bank and all those kinds of things. And plus, I just think that having this site be developed and maintained at an institutional kind of level is way better for the area than having it be vacant and, verging on becoming blighted. I just think that's a positive.
I'm going to clarify your statement and say it's not on the verge of being blighted.
Okay.
I want to be honest. It's one of the number one concerns other than traffic in that little neck of town.
Right. And we really are, we got to find solutions. We got to work with the city and find solutions. But like I said earlier, we know that's number one on the list. And we got to get some smart engineers involved to help us figure it out.
All right. I think that's pretty much it in terms of the comments that I see on the YouTube stream and such. Let's see. S. Gray, you guys still got your hand raised. I don't know if that means if there's any other questions that you had or not. If you can figure out how to unmute yourself, feel free to. Well, I think that's it in terms of like questions and comments. Ben, do you or your team have any like closing statements you'd like to make?
We don't have anything prepared. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this and hear some of these questions. And I know we can send our PowerPoint or our PDF of the slides to everyone, so you have that and can look at that. And if there are specific questions, Mr. Murphy, you or Councilwoman Ryder or Ms. Welch or anybody has about maybe addressing some of the concerns about the other uses and how we can potentially alleviate that, then I think we're open to looking at that and seeing if there's a way we can do that, because as Kurt mentioned, when he was talking about Hillwood and Mr. Perot, I mean, they want to be, they see themselves as being a company with integrity, and then when they say something, they're going to do it. I think, looking again, going back to the research done by the News Sentinel in their article this morning, and looking at other projects that they have done across the country. I mean, this isn't something they promise they're going to do this and it goes away. They've actually developed these sites across the country and in the state. So, I think we're willing to back up what we say, and looking forward to the opportunity of working with the city and working through these issues, because it can't be stressed enough. This is a very important piece of property, a very important area to Knox County and to the community, and we want to make sure we do it the correct way.
All right. Well, I believe that's that handles all the questions and comments. So I would want to thank everybody for you know, I know it was a little bit tricky trying to pull all this together. Thanks for joining us online and virtually. And you know, this has been a really great way to share information. I am, you know, so Ronnie and I are involved in a lot of things that come in from the Planning Commission. We're really excited when an applicant reaches out ahead of time and offers to share information and talk with us. We want to really, you know, we want to say thank you for that. That's
Actually,
a
Kevin,
really
I
nice
have
thing.
one quick question. It'll be super easy for them to answer. It's either to Ben or to Mr. Nelson. You all were had mentioned something about needing the IG zone because of the building height. Do you all know what that building height, what is there a special number that you're looking to hit?
So I think 60 feet would make us comfortable. We're not looking to build. I think that the IG gets us to 90 feet, and I don't expect anything that tall. But
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the IMU has a 50-foot limitation on the height, and so we think to be safe we need to go beyond that, but we're not looking at putting a 100-foot tall building there either. So
yeah, the IG lets you have 60, IRD is the 90, but then after you hit 50, you have to do setbacks and things like that once to get it further away from residential. Right. So the IG would get you where you need with the height.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And Debbie Sharp from Office of Neighborhoods, thank you for helping host this and running the admin side of it. We really appreciate you. All right. Well, everybody have a great day.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks, everybody.